All right.
Hey, cool. Thank you very much indeed, and welcome, Marijn. Our second live episode.
Nice, nice. Well, the first one was not a big success, so let's see if we can do it better.
Let's see if we can do it better this time.
Right.
How good it is to be in Las Vegas. I've always wanted to go to Las Vegas. I've always wanted to present in Las Vegas.
Yes.
We are in Las Vegas.
Yes.
Okay.
In our head, we are.
Keep the dream. Keep the dream.
Definitely are. All
okay.
Right. So, first off, some introductions around some mandatory slides. So, we always wanted to go to the SharePoint conference. We can't anymore because now it's called the Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference. I think it's a better name. It's not just SharePoint anymore. It's so much more. Also, thanks to all the sponsors that we have in here. We have some big names here, so definitely take a look at them. They all deliver really awesome things, and yeah, just really take a look at these. It's also important that you take a look at these because there are some Oculus Quests being raffled. And
No. This is a waste of time. Anybody attempted this in Europe, because I've already won this, so don't bother going there. Oh, okay. Now I haven't. I haven't even had it go. There's no point you doing because you've already got one.
I already have one, and it is a super cool device. So if you win it, add me to your friends at Marijn Somers and see if you can beat me at the Beat Saber game. Because I'm so good at it, so try to beat me. Yeah, I challenge you. Also, in this time of horrible circumstances, we have really some need for some extra relief.
I think this is cool. Okay, because we can make some money easily. We know there was over 10,000 people registered for this event. Imagine that we were in Vegas. Imagine how much you'd throw on the table in one evening. 20, 30, 40, $50, and you're not going to win anything for it, so you may as well donate it to here.
Absolutely.
That would be over 100 and something grand. It's a cool idea.
That is a good idea. Yeah, absolutely. Also, 10% from all the sponsors also goes into that support community relief. I think that is a brilliant setup as well.
Good idea.
Yeah. So, for those 3 people out in the world that don't know who we are, for nearly 2 years, this guy and me have been doing a podcast called Office 365 Distilled. And we're always, we kind of use this as an excuse to drink. But what it is,
you use it as an excuse to drink.
Absolutely. But what it actually is, it is just us talking about technology for 40, 50 minutes, and then we end up with a whiskey tasting. So then we taste a single malt. A lot of people have been saying to me, like, maybe we should do whiskey tasting before we talk about technology. But I don't think
we tried that once.
Yeah, it's not a good idea.
That was the unheard podcast, one never to be published.
Yeah. So that's not working at all. So that's us. You can find us on all the major podcast systems like Spotify, iTunes, whatever you listen to podcasts.
Just search on any of them for Office 365 Distilled. You'll find us, and you'll have fun. It's a laugh.
Absolutely.
A little bit of technology, a little bit of whiskey.
Not much of everything. Yeah, awesome.
Cool. Yeah. All right, let's get started on what we're doing here. So we've got about 45 minutes left. That's not bad. We're on time so far.
It's good.
We might fail a little bit later.
Once.
What do we want to do? I want to talk about some new concepts here. You've heard of B2B, B2C, business to business, business to customer. I want to talk about a concept called business to IT. Because without that business to IT relationship, search is not going to work for you as well as it could be. So I want to kind of talk about that concept of being searched. Is that good for you? You're looking.
No, absolutely,
right,
absolutely. Yeah.
So we're going to learn the importance of business in a search strategy and look at some ideas and practical ideas on how you can make that work for you and basically improve your search environment. Understand how to get the process started, and agile. The agile processes work really, really well whenever you're trying to work with the business. So that's where we want to get to with this. So we're looking at setting up search, maintaining that high quality service, and we're going to kind of just do a little shallow dive into the technology. But there's been a lot of search techie talks already. We want to talk about the business side of this.
Absolutely, and that is my disclaimer for this session. If you're looking for a deep dive technical session, this is not it. There are a few others. This is really a talk on how to get the business into that thought process and into that interaction, so they can drive whatever they need in order to make more money, reduce costs, be more compliant, be more agile. So definitely all good stuff.
All right. So today, and for the last 5, 10, 15 years, IT has delivered solutions. And we've kind of focused in our business on how we can make solutions work for the business. And you get a lot of mock organizations and adoption, and you're basically pushing those solutions onto the business. But things are changing. The business are doing a number of things. First of all, they're more competent than they used to be. So they know, and this little model here kind of just talks about the past exchange where IT fed in most of that information, and business gave a little bit of feedback. Maybe they sent a requirements of what you needed, whereas IT then said, okay, based on your requirements, this is what you're having. But that's changing. The future exchange of information is the other way around. Business in an agile environment, in an agile process, are saying, listen, as a user, I want my computer to turn on in the morning in 13 seconds flat. Go make it happen. And IT are going, okay, we now know what you need. We can actually deliver that. And the line that I need you to do is right along the bottom of this. Tomorrow, business will define the value that they need out of the money that they effectively pay us. Every organization slices something off the top for IT. So we're working for them. We've known it for a long, long time. But I want to be realistic here. I absolutely understand, and I'm sure many people have got examples, I know we have, when we've gone to the business and said, hey, we'd like you to help us and work together on this, and effectively the business kind of goes, okay, don't have time for this, and it doesn't happen. So it really is about building that relationship, that business to IT relationship.
Yeah, because IT is a service to the business, and that really needs to be clear. Yeah, absolutely.
So what does that actually mean? So in an agile world, we have these things called user stories, and we'll touch about those on a different presentation, different slide in later on in the presentation. But think of it as a push and a find. So what the business wants from search is to push something out. So there's an example there. Look, as the owner of staff reviews in HR, what I want to do is tell managers how to find the latest updates in my annual review process before May the 1st. So
because otherwise they will all start emailing me like, how do I do this? And I need to reply to each one of them.
And we get way too many emails as it is. So yes, if we can reduce that, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So we know what the user wants here. It's a simple statement, simple user story that says, hey, tell me, get me this because I need it to happen. So the find is the manager. The manager at the other end says, if you go to the bottom of the page, as a manager, how do I complete staff reviews? And we need to match those together somewhere. Just because HR send everybody an email, hey, we always read all of our emails on time, within a space, of course we do. All right, or they go to the page on the intranet and find the information if they go looking for the information. But what we want to be able to do is identify those terms in the business where the manager can just go, hey, I need to complete a staff review, and know and guarantee that the information has been pushed from the right area. Same with compliance, same with video stream service. So you either have push, the business wants something, or you want find, a user wants to find something. What we've got to try and do is to bring those together. But you can't bring those together unless you both talk to each other, okay? Yeah. And that the business say, it's important that people find this information. And IT say, hey, it's important you tell us that because we can make it happen. And so this idea of business to IT is about that relationship between the two of them, one saying what I actually need and my users need to add value, and of course IT being really good and knowing exactly what they need to provide.
Is that kind of like the story with Henry Ford saying, if I need to find something that travels faster, I don't want to build a faster horse, I want to build an automobile?
Absolutely not at all, but let's just move on. Nice. Yeah, no, exactly that, exactly that. Set the requirements.
Okay.
Okay, so this business to information technology, do you like the cool Cool logo.
I want to have that tattooed on my leg or something.
Yeah, only on your leg.
Yes.
Well, let's not go where that could get tattooed. Anyway, the business to information technology. We've got to think about this in an agile kind of way. So I'm very, very quickly going to go and run through this. Agile is about value. And that business to IT technology relationship is about making sure that the business get value out of everything they ask you to do. And in a short space of time, traditional projects using waterfall technology, you decide what you want to do, you plan it out, you aim for your 100%, and then you get to the end and things have changed and all those kinds of things. And what we want to do is to do things in a small iterative way, small 2 or 3 weeks piece of work, show it to the business, make sure they're happy. They may improve it and say, actually, those search results that we asked for on those keywords are great, but we also find out that people are calling it X and they're calling it Y. Can you change the search term? And you go, yeah, that's brilliant. And we've done that in an iterative way rather than going through, let's find all the search terms, let's find all the content, let's map it together, let's talk about it. And 8 or 10 weeks down the line, then you present a service. This way, you can do something very, very quickly indeed. And we're going to look at that a little bit later.
Yeah, all right. Sounds cool. So, what if we don't do anything for search? So we just have Office 365, people are using Exchange, people are using OneDrive, people are using SharePoint. What if we don't do anything extra?
So you mean I can just go, search is working?
Yes, exactly. You don't even have to turn it on. It's just on by default.
It's just there.
Yes.
Is it any good?
It is.
Okay.
It's pretty good. Yeah, sure. So it delivers your minimum viable value proposition. You got a number of things that you can do. Let's check it out. So by default, if I'm in SharePoint or if I'm on my Office 365 homepage, what I can do is I just click on that search box that's now in the center of your top bar. You can just click on there, and by default, it will already spin up some results. So without knowing what I'm going to search for, it's already going to say, okay, maybe these are things that you might be looking for. If I actually search for something, I actually go to a search result page where I can see a number of results. I have filters on the right hand side. So in this case, I've got my modified time things where I can actually filter my results in. And I've got a number of verticals. So I've got all my results. I can only look for files. I can look for specific SharePoint sites. I can look for people who have been doing something with this, or I can look for any news around this.
And those filters on the right hand side, they've recently expanded those, haven't they, to include types of files and those kinds of things. Yeah. Or did they actually change, I think, when you change the menu across the top? So yeah, those filters are quite cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's an interesting proposition because not many of the business understand that that kind of simple filtering is available. So the amount of times that you get in front of the business and you demonstrate search and you go, and then you can filter them out and they go, wow, you know, it's actually quite a lot. So somewhere along the way, finding out what they need, what you can deliver. But yeah, that's very experienced to see that later. Yeah.
For the people that listen to our podcast, we actually have a Dear Jeff session. And I want to grab this moment to have a Dear Jeff session. So Dear Jeff, please let the filters appear by default and don't let me click on that filters button, because 90% of my end users don't see that filter button and they don't use the actual filters.
Yeah, you know that Dear Jeff thing didn't work out for us very well last time.
No, it didn't. Oh, but anyway. So what happens when we're in OneDrive? Exact same experience. So I just click on that search bar. It automatically shows me a number of things. I can actually go to a search result page and so on. What happens when I'm in my Windows, with my synced files, my synced folders, I can also search for something, but that is just, in my opinion, not that good.
Needs some work.
It needs some extra, it needs some tender loving care to make it.
There used to be a feature in Windows 10 where you could link it to SharePoint search. So you could actually register the Windows 10 or the Explorer and say, hey, when I search, I actually want my SharePoint results as well. But that was kind of discontinued a while ago. Okay. I'm sure it was one of those things that didn't quite work the way it should. The idea was sound. So you had a URL or whatever, a connection, connected it in, and then when you search for stuff on Windows 10, you did actually get the results back.
there has been some talk about promoting that Windows search to be able to do that much more, but
there is a way you can get your SharePoint search on there. I'm deviating now from the script.
yeah,
That's okay.
That's okay.
And that's using the Office app.
Yes.
So if you put the Office app onto your Windows 10 machine and use search from there, then you will get the power of the search, in this case, out of the box. Cool. Anyway, just to fix your frustration here.
No, that was all. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about search. And Marijn has just shown you here how easy it is. Turn it on and let it go. And most organizations,
you don't even need to turn it on. It's on by default.
Yes, I should have listened to you.
You don't even have to do anything. You don't have to lift a finger. It's just there. It will give you results.
Excellent. Anyway, out of the box, connecting people together without turning it on. We've heard what the search is. But search is not just something that's provided. It's not a feature. Okay, just open it up and use it. It's a strategy. And it's a strategy that will make you look so cool. You will be the Office 365, Microsoft 365 rock stars if you follow some of the things that we're going to look at here. So why is search a strategy? It's because there are so many new things in the last year. When Naomi announced this at Ignite, say to 18 months ago, a year ago, whatever, they did the big search presentation, and they talked about things like the acronyms and the best bet search coming back and all that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, IT couldn't manage this on their own. Okay, the strategy around search and understanding what people get real value from that is literally something that we have to work with and understand a specific business need, not what happens in many things today, only what IT asked for. So how do we get that information? How do we actually understand where that information comes from? Does anybody in the business come to knock on your door and say, I want to be able to search for my documents now, and everybody needs to be able to find them whenever they look for X, Y, and Z. And you look at them and you go, wow, you are an angel. Come and sit down and talk to me about what your search needs.
Mine is
wow, exactly, yes. And you just make sure that he isn't just coming into work from a night on the town, of course, that he actually has a real need. But we can make that statement. As a user, I need them to be able to find these documents with these search terms, and then we can start to configure it as a strategy. And the reason it's a strategy is this: one day that content will be useless, and as a strategy we have to define how long does that content need to be viewable as a search result, as a result that people actually want and actually need. So yes, that's something that we need to do. To do that, we have to see and make sure that the organization is feeding into that process.
Okay.
I was expecting you to lift your arm up then. You kind of did it behind the back.
The clicker. Yeah.
I love this slide. This is something that I ended up deep diving and going down the internet rabbit hole a couple of weekends ago. And I was basically trying to tie together the organizational, the business structure to what potentially search could be. And then I started realizing that organizational structure is a thing. Did you know that it's a thing? It actually isn't just a name for, it's actually a moving theological business trained thing. Okay, you're as impressed as I was, but I lost 90 minutes that day digging down and telling. Okay. So just because I'm getting cool about this, but it started when we started hunting for food. Literally, when we needed to eat, people started to realize that if we organize ourselves better, we'll get better food and better responses.
If the archers come from the left, then we can bring down this mammoth much faster.
And that's where the military came in. So yes, positioning, you know, all those kinds of people around the 20th century, how they can win battles and all that. It was all about this organizational structure. But then in the 1900s, we started to realize that the organizational structure was very much based about what the people do. So in the 30s, science emerged and employees kind of drove this organizational structure for efficiency, for being able to create the factories started and all that kind of stuff, managers and sub-managers and people, and actually that structure was delivering things. And then the 1960s, when it was all flower power, hey guy, how you doing? Then it was all about the skills and the knowledge, and people realized that when they come into a building, they know partly what they need to do. And of course, in the 21st century, the organizational structure is kind of an expression of the people that are working and what they need to do. So the idea of being able to innovate and to be able to build things from it. So that organizational structure has changed more in the last 70 years than it has in the last 500 years. And of course, when it comes to search, that is also a key requirement for us as well. So let's take a quick look at that structure. In a very simple set of terms, we have the C-level, the management, and the delivery matrix. And today we get most of our information about what the business needs in terms of search and requirements from one person, and that is the CIO. The CIO feeds into the IT strategy, but the only information they get tends to be from senior management and the other C-level. So it's not getting everything else that needs to be coming in here. So then we end up with the lower management. Oh, sorry, I've jumped down. I'm going to get to the lower management in a minute. At the bottom of the tree, we end up with these masters of their own area. They are
search matter experts.
Search matter experts, yes, they're subject matter experts. So that's exactly where they're at. We're not going to deal with those in a search perspective for a minute or two, but the people we need for search are just there. They're above those delivery teams. They're the people that have a slightly bigger picture in terms of where we need to get to, but they're also being led by their own managers, by their senior managers. So consequently, these are our search definition experts. These are the kinds of people that can tell us the sorts of things that we need to put into our search results. So what are some of those things that we need to put into our search results? These should look familiar to you.
Oh yeah,
other people.
Yeah.
I'm sure that on some SharePoint site or another, at some point, we've put this kind of information together. So what is it that in some of your experiences that people are looking for and need from their SharePoint stack at the moment?
The lunch menu.
Lunch menu.
Yes.
The number one.
That's the number one requirement. Yeah. What's for lunch today?
What's for lunch?
Yeah.
It's the number one hit.
Yep.
The other number two is usually the organization chart.
Yes, and how do I write down my hours that I worked? That's also pretty high of the food chain, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some fun stuff. You can see some examples on the screens here. Yeah. So in practical terms, we're looking for things that add value. So I don't know whether many people have done web design. I'm sure I know you've done a bit of web design, but when I first started,
long time ago.
Yeah, when I started a lot longer time ago than you did. But when I first started, it was all about everything needs to be there within 3 clicks, and that changed over the last few years. So yes, clicks were kind of frustrating or something to do, but it basically changed. As long as every click adds value to that individual, you don't mind clicking it. Like me in organizational structure a few weekends ago. Hey, wow, that's interesting. Click, yeah, that is interesting. Click, yeah, that is interesting. And then you think, why did I open Internet Explorer? What was I actually looking for? And then I got caught on something. So if every link has value, then it's a win-win. It's a win for us, people who are using the service, and it's a win for the business. So how do we do that? I don't know how many people go back. I haven't finished.
Oh, sorry.
No, you could be getting excited, or you're telling me we're running out of time.
No. All good. All good.
So the thing about those values is that the business will tell us those important things. They'll give us the user stories, like the canteen manager. It would be really good if I can put my menu every day onto the SharePoint site, so people search for menu, and then they get the menu. And very soon, you'll start to hear around the office, did anyone know what's in the canteen today? Just type menu into search and you'll get to and it works every single time, and it adds value. Business cycles. We talked about search being the strategy. So recurring business cycles are on there. So quarterly reports, okay? Holiday bookings, shift patterns. The interesting thing about that as a strategy is that when somebody searches for quarterly report, they want this quarter's report. They don't want 7 quarterly reports that are not in the right order, and then they have to work out which one's the latest one. How many times do we go to Google and we're searching for something and we're reading a podcast, or sorry, not a podcast, we're reading a web page, and all of a sudden you realize it's 4 years out of date.
Oh yeah, a lot. Yeah.
And we don't want to give people the impression that in our organization, when they search for something, they do not get the latest and the greatest. And how many times have we been in to do a SharePoint install and they go, yeah, my SharePoint intranet site, for example, has got 22,000 pages in it. But there's only 800 people in your organization, so there's a mismatch somewhere. And that's because people don't take stuff off. So yes, we'll talk a little bit about analytics a little bit later on. Actually, I think we're going to do it now.
Nice segue, nice segue. No, and that is absolutely super important, because if you're gonna deliver search as a service to the business, you need to make sure that the business is using it, where they're running into problems, stuff like that. So you need to check on those hit rates. You need to have tools available to monitor what people are searching for, if they're finding an answer anyway, if they're finding something that is working. So does that mean that they're still clicking further, or is that when they stop clicking around because they actually found what they were looking for? So there are a number of things that you need to check on that. So how can we do that? So within Office 365 in the Admin Center, you have the Microsoft Search Admin Center. And that first page, when you open it up, you will immediately get your insights. These are the insights that are coming from Bing, by the way. And these will already start to show you some of the things that people have been looking for.
If you have the system enabled search connector so that you're mixing your results with Bing and everything else, I know we're going to talk about that later, I get that. But do these analytics also give you back your local search results as well as the global search results, or do we not know that? So you said they're from Bing.
These are the ones where I'm looking for on the Bing extension, and where I'm getting those results.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So it will not probably the Britney Spears naked pictures or something, that search term will not probably in there. No. I think maybe we'll
I'll go check later.
And then, of course, this page should look pretty familiar. This has been the page for a number of SharePoint versions, and it's still there in the SharePoint Admin Center as well. This is the place where you can actually check all your SharePoint search results. So really cool ones are the top queries by day. So you can actually see what people have been looking for the most. So, for example, when those quarterly results come out, you will probably see that people will look much more for those quarterly results there. Also important to see are the abandoned queries, is where people are actually looking for something and then not clicking on a result, or the ones with no results. Those are pretty important, because that means somebody's looking for something and there were no results. So there's possible knowledge to be searched for, which isn't there. And that could be many reasons. Maybe it's just somewhere where it's not reachable by the search, or maybe it just doesn't exist. So these are really cool things to look for.
What I quite like about this, if we were live in Vegas now with those 6 people that we're presenting to sat in front of us, I kind of ask when the last time anybody went to this page and downloaded one of these spreadsheets, because I'm fairly sure that you probably haven't, and yet there's some really simple ways of making this of value so that you can feed it back to the business, and you're going to get fed up with me saying the word value. Yeah. Okay, but absolutely. Imagine if we, because I think there's only 30 days of results here, so at least every 30 days we should download these, put them somewhere stored, maybe add to them, but then point Power BI to them so that you can get trends on those abandoned queries. So you can get trends on those top queries by day, and whether it is the right items that the internal comms team, for example, are expecting to see. And that's part of that strategic approach to search. It's being able to judge myself based upon the results that I see. And also, so this has been around a while, but it's actually in its base form, it's very powerful because we've got tools that can query that information.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when we're thinking about search, we need to think about business and we need to think about governance. And what you see here is those search definition experts, okay, and the information that they can provide us to be able to create an awesome #1 search experience for our users. So this is the one slide. Later on, go and find it, print it out, use it as a checklist. But to have a look at some of the things that in your business they would actually need to do. On the bottom left hand side, we'll talk about some of the setting decisions. These are more around the administration and IT, but are we going to integrate that Bing search? Are we going to put those add-ins in place? Okay.
Is your organization even using Bing as a search engine, or are you still using Google or DuckDuckGo maybe, or something else?
Yeah, absolutely. And then looking at how, there's the SharePoint search and how that can be continually improved. And just because you decide on April the 1st that there's no such thing as an integrated Bing search, but you then review it again in September, or, it's not, hey, we've made this decision, let's move on and ignore it. Because there's a number of things. Those search definition experts will change. Okay, they will change jobs, they will get replaced, and people will have new ideas. So those experts also own most of the core information within your business. So imagine information technology. We probably, like everybody else in the world now, you make knowledge items on ServiceNow to be able to get your information to your users. And that may not be the right place, but when they search for it, regardless, they still want to be able to bring that content into play. Human resources, lots of stuff that they own, that they want to make sure that gets out there. And that's crucial, that stuff needs to be kept up to date. Your purchasing department, your finance managers. And let's not forget internal comms, all right, and CEO. They're always wanting to make sure, and they count how many people get to see the latest newsletter, the latest video, the latest information. So these are your key owners of your core content. And then we get to the really cool stuff that will make them go wow and add real value. The ability now that you can create answers to questions. So just like Bing and all those other search engines, what time does Top of the Pop start tonight? There's me showing my age.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
All right, let's go with a more one. And how do I claim the expenses for my international travel? Then there's an answer to that is fixed and precise, and you need to be able to present that at the right time. How to report a problem.
And that is, I think, one of the biggest gotchas that you can do in search, because normally in search I'm searching for something and I get a page full of results, but I don't actually want a page of results. I want an answer to my question.
Yeah.
And with the whole Microsoft search, it is now possible to do that, and that is super awesome.
In action.
Something like that.
Yes,
yes, exactly. That's what it is.
It is really good.
Yes.
But I'll just give you a little heads up. It's not as easy as you think. Okay. But having those answers, having those questions, it sits into the system perfectly. But there's one unpredictable aspect to answers and questions in search that you need to consider. It's the human being. Okay. Your users will ask the weirdest questions. They will not expect the right kind of answers. And so again, those statistics and checks. So answers and questions are great, but you need to make sure that you got the right answer and that people are asking the right kind of question. So again, the strategic view of regularly checking and making sure they work. And then the focus on different information types. And I know Marijn is going to touch on this big time in a little while. And this is the idea of keywords and bookmarks and locations. They're all things about the business that normally people find inside a PDF, the floor plan. You have to download a PDF, zoom in, try and find yourself. We've talked about the questions, acronyms. We had a meeting today, funny enough, and we were talking about the BCC. And even though it's the business change champions.
Oh, I thought it was about email, BCC.
No, it wasn't exactly, you see.
Okay.
So when we came up with a whole bunch of different names before we eventually arrived at the right one. But again, that would be something that is being introduced to the business, and those acronyms. And again, so this is how you can collect and gain that information when you have the kind of relationship with the business that drives and supports search. The important thing to think about, though, is that it needs checking and testing on a regular basis, because what's right today will not be right tomorrow or next month or in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah. That's also part of that agile process that
Absolutely.
You also need to rethink and reassess.
Those questions are perfect for the iterative process. Hey, give me your questions and now let's review these and test them. Are you happy? Then we'll make them live. Yep. Yeah, great example.
Awesome. Okay. So, as Steve already said, let's dive just a little bit into those search capabilities in there. And we also need to think of something cool to close
with preparation.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, something cool to close with. Yeah. Whiskey.
Yes.
Oh, wrong
For
thing.
example,
No, we're live. We're not recording it. We've not got a whiskey to look forward to. All right.
Yes. And I actually jumped one slide because that previous slide was something that I wanted to show after this one. But if you go into that Microsoft search, as I already showed you earlier, you can see the insights that is your first tab, and then all the other tabs are different or extra capabilities that you can add into search to do extra things for your users, for your organization. The first one is acronyms. So as a consultant, I go to a number of customers and they're all in different industries. I go to banks, I talk to really industrial companies. I had a chemical plant as a customer as well, and they're all using acronyms. So for me, it's super hard to get in there. Everybody's using acronyms. I'm sure that new people that get into that company also find it really frustrating. So what we can do now here is just make a list of all the acronyms that we know into our company, and we can all make them appear on search. So if I now search for something, for example, the EBITDA, I will actually get a description. I get a link to a source, to an authoritative page where I can actually have more information if I want to.
And of course, this is a perfect example of those things that the business knows that IT don't. Yeah.
Oh, and even between different parts of the
Exactly.
business, HR will have their own acronyms.
Yep.
R&D will have their acronyms. The people from sales have their own acronyms. Yep. And when the business is talking to each other, they might not realize what those acronyms are, but they might not dare to ask.
I once saw an adoption program on this, which is rather cool, and they got search set up, and they released onto their intranet an acronym. They actually just put this strange word that they kind of made up for a service, you know, the best search service in the world or something, you know, the best, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And left it there on the basis that whoever could actually get access and understand what that was, they basically wanted an award. And so they ran an adoption program based upon the type of content that people are working into.
Okay, and then you can win a prize if you actually search for it. And
you got to the page, and of course your results showed you. So it's a great way of adopting search.
Brilliant. All right, so the next one is the thing called bookmarks. So you probably know bookmarks. You probably have been saving favorites on your internet browser as well. So bookmarks are really these authoritative pages around a specific subject. So if I'm looking for something, I will, if I'm looking for how can I ask for time off, I will get that text there saying like, this is the procedure, how to do it.
And that's different to a question and answer, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Next, we also have floor plans. So floor plans, it's a little technical to put that up. The other ones are pretty easy. The acronyms, the bookmarks, the Q&As, they're pretty easy to set up. You just need that input from the business, but the business can actually drive these things. The floor plans are a little bit more technical because you actually need an AutoCAD drawing in a specific way set up that you can upload here. And then what you can do is when you search for somebody, you can actually see on that little map where that person is sitting. And that is a super cool idea. Definitely if you have multiple locations, if you have multiple floors in your business, that is super cool to do.
But I think there's a lot of information on how to do that around on the net.
Oh, so, yeah, absolutely.
Don't be put off.
No.
But just be prepped for a few scratchy head moments.
Absolutely. Next up, we also have locations. So you could write down your own locations on there. If you're multi-billion, multinational company, just like Microsoft is, for example, you can have all the locations, all the addresses there. But you could also put, for example, addresses there for your customers or your suppliers or where things are. I used to have a water company as a customer, and we used to write down all the locations of water towers and all the other equipment that was there. So when people had to do some kind of maintenance on that, they could actually search for the address.
Put the code in and get the address, wherever they were going.
Super
It's
easy.
Cool.
Yeah.
The other thing is it also gives a map as well. So you can put in map coordinates and it would then display an appropriate map with the location displayed. Neat.
Yeah. Next one, Q&A. That is actually where you can ask a question and you can define what the right answer is. So this could be all kinds of things. Mainly HR would be the best example for these. It's a number of things that you can ask to HR, and you can really make an authoritative answer to that. Oh, sorry. I thought you were gonna have some quirky remark.
No.
No. Okay. Cool. So next up, we've got result types. This is actually where you can define how your search results need to look like. We also have verticals where you can say, for example, I'm looking for files, I'm looking for sites, but maybe as you just had the example, you could also look for stuff that is outside of Office 365. The thing that you were mentioning was
ServiceNow.
ServiceNow, that's the good one. All right. So you can set up a number of connectors. That's the next one to look at that other information. And the configuration part, that's the last one. That's where you can actually set up that Bing connection, which is super cool, super important.
Yeah, cool. Those connectors are all over the place. There's a variety of those.
Oh,
connectors.
yes.
And there's a new API, I think we heard the other day, coming out, a new way of creating APIs, so you can create your own connectors to your services.
If you got your own build services running inside your organization, it's definitely easy to set those up.
Did you want to go back to the other slide before?
Oh, yeah. Good call.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So what you could also do with that bookmarks part is actually go build some Power App and have a Power App as a result. So if I'm looking for, I want to book some time away, how many vacation days do I have left? Instead of just giving me some text answer or linking me to some kind of application, just have it surfaced as a Power App saying, okay, you still got 17.1 days left.
I think this is a bad example. All right. I mean, we've been doing the podcast for 2 years now. We've been drinking a whiskey every time. We should actually have a list of how many whiskeys we've still got left to do. And then we know how many podcasts we still need to do.
Ooh, so many.
Okay, so that's the next Power App.
Anyway.
All right. So I think now we've got some real good examples about how the business needs to be involved in terms of searching, providing great search results. We also have the ability to bring the people together that have that information, and we know these search definition experts. The messages that search results bring back tend to be enterprise-wide. They're not subject matter specific. Those kinds of things tend to be done on things like ServiceNow, instruction sheets on where you need to go. So search results are enterprise-wide, which basically means that the right result is not defined by one person. So you need a board of some kind, or a workshop, or a regular meeting with these search definition experts. And you also need to have some kind of processes that work along with them. Those processes obviously are around how often I need to redesign certain documents in terms of whether they're the right documents, whether they need updating. So that quarterly report, every quarter, somebody needs to make sure that the new report is the one that's being displayed, and all those kinds of things. Identify the definitions of owners and the results audience. So sometimes when somebody from the production line searches for their annual leave requirements, that will be different if it's a CEO or a high-level C that is reporting on those audience figures. So think about the audiences that needs to be done. But this board is really, really important. It is one of those things that breaks the barriers down between IT and between the business. And it's also the opportunity to slowly move away from a role of leadership and become a servant leader, a very agile term, but basically I will help you to be a leader and help that business take over the ownership and the results of actually defining each of those search streams, those enterprise-wide results, those keywords, those forms, all those things that we've talked about. They will take on the responsibility of telling you exactly what they need rather than you driving them, which is what it will start out to be. But don't lose hope. These boards can take a while in terms of where they need to go to.
Oh yeah, yeah, I get that.
So we have some practical items coming up. Understand the value of working with a business. We've covered that very much. The enterprise messages we covered previously. As IT, we understand the value of search, but whether we do a very good job of telling other people what that value is, I do not know. And we certainly, most IT departments do not yet understand the role that they play in the value entity in terms of making sure search adds real value to the business. And that's where this agile thing comes into. And we talked right at the beginning about this iterative process. Be prepared to fail fast. I have a whole presentation that I do on hashtag screwed up, on the ability to, you know, okay, I think I'm 70% covered here. I'm just going to put it in and see what the results are. And in an agile way, we learn from that. So by putting it up there, failing fast, learn from it, repeat the process with an improvement, and the business will appreciate that you're able to improve each time you do something different, each time you get better, and you're going to be adding value to the whole process. And the business will see that instead of IT just being a budget line that they have to pay for, that IT actually starts. It's true. It's true. You know, I've been in a few meetings. Why are we paying you this much money when you spent 6 months delivering nothing? You know? Yeah. And so yes, they'll start to sort of see that value moving forward. So yes, understand the value of working with the business. Make it a priority to get the information from them.
Awesome.
Yours, this is your practical. You'd like to finish off with a practical slide.
Yes, because I was actually thinking that this whole session might be too high level for the virtual marathon. And if everyone is already running that virtual marathon starting yesterday, you might get tired. You might need just some basic next steps and how to approach this. So what are the things that you can do right now or maybe tomorrow? Because here it's 7 o'clock in the evening. We're not going to do that right now. We're going to do that tomorrow. What are the things that you need to do? Well, first of all, you need to start looking for the people that you want to put in your search design board. So choose those people carefully, because the business needs to realize the value of search. And the only way how you can do that is that you demonstrate these capabilities. So set up a number of small experiments, set up a number of small things that you can easily demo, where the business can go like, wow, this is what we need. We want to start working on this, because as you said, there's a budget. People need to work together, and people need to do something into the company that is going to cost money. So you need to get that budget.
It's important as well, you tell them up front. So the ambassadors of this world, listen, you guys, we're going to need 2 hours a month from you, or whatever it's going to take. So yes, get that in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's super important that the business gets the why you're doing this.
Yes.
So if you're going to write user stories together with the business, that is going to make a lot of sense. That also helps the business to understand it. That helps the business to break it down, to sell it to their manager, to sell it to their peers, why that is important. And then, of course, you need to prioritize these user stories. So you need to define what are the things that we're going to do first, and what are the things that we're going to do after that. And then, of course, you need to repeat that process as required. So every few months, realign to see if that is still the things that you need to do.
That's quicker than a few months. Every time you start a new kind of sprint, a new iterative process, just make sure that the priorities are still right.
Yeah. Okay.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. Thank you for joining us. We should say we're going to be back in an hour's time.
Yes. So relax, have a drink, eat something, and we're back in an hour. And then we'll talk about
the business side of Cortex.
Yes. And that is going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's neat. So the one on the left-hand side, tell us what you really thought. Steve and Marijn, if you've got any questions, just hashtag them with hashtag Office365 Distilled, or at SciSteve, or at Marijn Somers. And I think we're going to kind of say goodbye.
Yep.
All right, guys, hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Cheers.